2 weeks ago, then, not 3 weeks ago, 16th of August. Mentioned OrchardCore merge package can get. We talked about 1.5 release. Today, 9.6. 6. What will be demos? Do we have demos?
I have one. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I have one about tenant removal.
Tenant removal. Gently, it's just the second time Gently joins the meeting.
And I have one about notifications.
That topics being maybe 1.5, because we should release. Maybe it might not be ready for okay, status. Can I do anything? I'm confused by this new UI that says don't change anything. There is nothing to change. So that 8.16. Is the password generated to meet password requirements? Okay, so then when we generate a password, it will be based on the settings. So it's implemented in JavaScript now. Good. And with good randomization. Remove the ISiteService dependency from OrchardCore.Resources. We'll review that. Useless post increment. Oh, I see. I remember. Yeah, I made a comment on this one. I assume.
Yes.
For the date time.
And you were looking at 1 second timer, and the 1 second is defined as the first line of, at the top of this.
Yeah. What I was not liking was the fact that we were depending on incrementing variable instead of just checking the date.
I tried to use the date time, but this loop, each iteration is executing each second.
Whatever. Even if it's 1 or 10, if we just check the date there, it will work.
Yes, I did a PR for that, but I say to me, it will create that time each second, and
whatever.
And we accept UTC no each second.
Whatever. We do that every millisecond sometimes.
Okay.
So that's not an issue.
Okay.
We can create a date time every second. Move OC.ResourceManagement.Core under OC Solutions folder. Why not? Tenant names checking tweaks. I'm not factoring. And code is default shell. I should migrate it is default shell, and Chantier is now using it.
We take in this PR, we also take into account that now the inner dictionary of shell hosts are case insensitive. So there are many lines of code that we can remove, just access dictionary. And is default shell, I assume was already existing, but it was in a case insensitive way, it has been replaced in a case-sensitive way because the default shell should exist. So we can now use it.
Well,
But,
because we are using this constant everywhere, actually. I hope so. So one test to do is try to create a tenant that is named default in lowercase.
In the checking, validation checking we do, we check if the tenant already exists, and the lookup part of the tenant are case remember insensitive, yes. But there is a difference between the lookup and what we do with an actual shell setting instance. And when we check for the default tenant, we can check the exact name it should have.
Editor, date, PagerOptions, in the settings. It's not part of site settings anymore. It is, but it's updating the options.
Yes, here the pattern is that the site setting always win in the post configuration. And if we have an application that doesn't reference site setting, we still have the option to define the default value.
And update, remove big dashes. Okay. Fallback alternate when a custom stereotype is used. So Mike, the idea here is that when you create a stereotype, before this commit, you had to create templates for the stereotype if you intended to display or edit items of these stereotypes. And now there is a fallback shape for stereotypes such that if you don't create custom templates, it will use a standard default template that is valid for any stereotype. And how it does that is just saying that let's use the content shapes for anything if you didn't create a custom template. So to do that, it's adding an alternate with the stereotype underscore display type. So as the last possibility. So if you have a custom one, it will use a custom one. If you don't, then it will display that. Which means there won't be an error message when you create a stereotype and you try to create a content item from the stereotype by default. It will just work, and then you can customize it. That's a good experience. Hello, invariant type by definition lookup. Definition manager, follow up from the previous default tenant verification and case insensitive checks in dictionary. So here it's doing the same thing for part names. by definition and by definition. Validate database connection before allowing a tenant to be added or set up. So when we create a tenant now, the database will be checked in terms of existence and also to be sure that no table has been created with the use prefix. It's usually an issue when you create lots of tenants and you use the same prefix and then it fails, you don't know why, you cannot recover. So now it will validate that file.
And we found a little use case when you use shell setting and configuration from database, which is configured at the host level. We store this in two dedicated documents in the document table. So if you use add shell database configuration from the app and with the same prefix, empty prefix, for example, it failed to set up. So we are fixing it. We are fixing it with Mike currently.
Okay. As a prefix to DisplayedManager, optional prefix. So not breaking, but you can provide your own prefix for shapes. Display stereotype property, ContentPickerFieldSettings, a way to filter the types on the ContentPicker field by stereotype. So kind of a group of types. If you want to allow users only to select specific types from a stereotype, like widget. And there is the same thing for something else. This one, BagPartSettings. Export content items based on query results. Okay. Do I not like things like this? What the...
I don't remember the detail. Because at some point we are checking a query, not a listen query, not a SQL query, but a query. And we want to know if this query return content item. So in the base class, we have yes. In a specific class, we have an override. And in the query base class, we have a default virtual function. So that you can see the use somewhere. I don't remember where it is used.
I'm sure it's wrong. I just need to understand why it's wrong now.
Yes.
You know the feeling with the experience when you see something like that can't be true?
Yes.
I can't imagine why you would need something like that. So let's see. And then maybe I will realize that the why you need something like that is what is wrong. Like you should not.
Yes. Yes. I don't remember there is one place where it tested this. Maybe.
Let's see. Deployment step. Okay, there is a deployment step. So what's the goal of the thing? Export content items based on queries. Okay, so you want to be able to export something based on a query. So you create a query, and the result of this query is the list of content items that you want to export. So I don't know why you need that. Let's check.
The issue is that the loosen query has a different parameter than the SQL query for the return content items.
Yes, as content item or return content item.
And if we refactor these, then it might break the queries.
So when it is used, you can, on a query, not a base query class, you can say query.isType of content item that returns true or not. Is of type content item, yes. It is used in one file, I don't remember the one. Maybe deployment step or query base content deployment step, maybe this one.
Where is query? It's not a module. Not a module. Abstract. Manager, result. Why do we have it there? Resource, query result, query manager. So query source is the one that we can from scene and so on. So query source says my name. I can create a query and I can execute the query.
I will find it. Result of type.
I don't want to look at that. I want to reverse design the feature. So why? So this one has items and count. Okay, this one has been decomplete. Okay.
So it is used in the file query based content deployment step driver, for example.
Very nice, but I don't want to know where it's used. I want to prove that it should not even be used.
Okay.
This way I don't have to even look at where it's used. So I 50-50, I will be wrong, but I want to prove myself. That is the correct solution. So query manager, name. Okay, so today a query is named. So whatever the source of the query, like Lucene or SQL, it's providing the query result, so objects. Okay. Why do you check for the type? Why can't you just execute the query and check that the object is a content item and say, and don't export anything if it's not a content item? Worst case, okay, fallback. Is it a list of IDs and maybe it's a list of content item IDs, but you don't even have to enter that. You could say that the query has to return content items because that's a content item step export, something like that.
Yes.
So why not just do that? Because in the end, this is what you're doing, right? Because I'm sure, I don't even remember what I saw, but I believe the property that was added for instance, the Lucene one or the SQL one is just checking that it's returning content item. Let's see. Like, I mean, what's the point of that? Okay, that's the default implementation. That's nothing. So let's look at SQL query. Return documents. Yeah, that's that. Like you are just saying what you will return.
Based on the returned content item.
So this code could be in the export step and say, if the content item is a content, if the type of the result is a content item, then I can export it. And I'm sure it's okay. Let's see where it's used there. Can you tell me the file that you just mentioned earlier?
Yes, so it is query, for example, query based deployment source at line 37.
Source, okay.
Yes, at place 37.
Why source?
I don't know. Query, source for query source.
What is this thing? Why do you need a custom source? Oh, it's a deployment source. It's not a query. So, okay.
Yes.
It's a deployment source. You are just checking that. Okay, you are just checking the query can return content items before executing the query. All right.
Yes.
I will not change the design of this abstraction just because you want to know what the query will return before
executing it.
I understand now why you made it, but is it do you have to do it? Like it's
yes.
Like, oh, be careful, you won't be able to execute this query because it doesn't return content items. Yeah, it's nice, but you could also say, let's execute the step, and when the results are empty, people will investigate and say, yeah, I'm not returning.
Yes.
So breaking an interface just for that. And also with a generic, like, can I return any type? I mean, yeah. Could even be called, can I return a content item, or be an I content item query? Maybe that something has to implement. That would have been better, in my opinion.
Yes, that's another idea for a marker interface.
Yeah, so that you can say, yeah, this one implements that, so it returns. But yeah, so because today we have queries that can return IDs or documents or content items.
And we could have a return content item property the same.
Nah, I would just execute the query.
Okay.
Like, and just take the thing that are content items. As long as the step describes it, like pick up a query that returns content items. I will put a comment on the thing and see what people say. So, query. Oh, let me see. I'm sure the 12.
Yes.
Back here, it looks that I'm gonna go. Not an editor, graphical, contributing. spaces. Documenting types of content relationships. Interesting. Yeah, that was a recurring question in our one. This part is just reference. Is it just reference? Yeah. Back part is not flow part. What is back part? Yes, back part is explained. ContentPickerField of specific items doesn't mean anything. I would have used the word content type and not item. Specific items doesn't mean anything. If that makes sense. Use of picture field. Building structured responsive layout. Okay. Why hierarchical? Doesn't mean anything here either. One-to-many relationship is sufficient. There is nothing about hierarchical here. That might even be confusing. Okay, that's good. That's better. I'm fixed MediaField when using custom typing GraphQL. Okay. Remember that when we matched that, there was an issue. Use underscore instead of this when creating new field in VS. Okay, just editing the editor config. Max page size or page size if page size greater than max page size.
Yeah, that second check is really not needed and should be removed, and there's a PR to remove it.
Fix 12 to 59. Anytime there is morphing, we should clear the alternates. Because otherwise there could be an infinite loop. Remove long CSS class. Update query, update trunk rig, update package dependency. Okay, for more updates. Okay. Benchmark on it, update. Front awesome. It is SmtpService to validate email address. Oh, interesting. So now I'm confused. Or is there a fight between this PR and another one? Because there was a PR to use attributes instead of valid table object. I've seen a PR from Isham this morning about, oh, maybe this was it. This is about removing this surface implementation to use another attribute, the property. But we mentioned it. Yeah, you mentioned there was an error. So enable by dependency only flag for features to all the feature state to be auto-enabled or disabled. So new property on the features, just to mention that users are not supposed to change the state of this feature. This is just implementation detail feature that some other features might require to work. So this is just to be used by dependencies. And the idea is that when this feature is listed in the UI, you can't enable or disable it. You can see it's there, so you can see the dependency graph, but you can't change the state. It will be automatically enabled if required by something.
And we can see that in action in my demo after we're done.
And the web-based code update. Disabled by dependency feature only if currently enabled. Okay. Argument exception parameter order. Okay. Remove localization occurring in data annotation attributes. Oh, this is a PR that removes the validatable object and adds some attributes, which will now be localized. And now there is an attribute for the email validation. It's good. Update of like this one here. Oh, we missed 513. This one shown, and I believe I saw that before. So, boom, we missed 513. Here, for add settings to form objects. Oh yeah. So Mike added settings, but I'm sure we'll get a demo. Label and what else? There are two things. What are the two things? There was a label and what else?
Label and validation element that we can now add directly into the input widget and select widget and the text area widget. So everything is wrapped within the same element instead of having 2 different or 3 different elements on the widget list.
No, an explicit enable. Sure. This one. The rest is just okay. Archive later functionality. Archive later. We are published later already.
Yes.
So that's the archive later. I believe we said we'll do it only when we have the new task-based stuff, but done is done. Add missing node check operator in blog post, create deployment plan test. Okay. Fix Twitter access to policy for check. Okay. Fix material by info reset password. I believe you. Avoid error exception. Okay. Where is the fix here? Email, same thing, same thing, same thing.
It's just the order. Info.
Oh, aha.
Yeah.
I see. Oh, I see. Oh, this was a static validation by the tool, right?
Yeah.
I believe so. Okay, good. Fixed patch, delete media list. Same thing, order. Ah, signature operator. Okay, I assume it's all the same tool that generated the static analysis. Okay, so that explains the block of changes like this. Interesting. Check and get negotiation. Is right to left feature info extensions. Why not? Good. All good. Demos. Demos in order. Chantier. First.
Okay.
Thank you.
I will.
Just because the order is the order on my panel.
Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes. Not even in French.
So
just to recall, it's about tenants removal.
yes. So the ability to delete one or more tenants in a bulk action. I first thought to do a demo with multiple OrchardCore instances because we were talking about. I have Kubernetes deployment, but maybe in another demo, because to see what happened in each individual pod, it is not so easy, but the idea is to have an instance of Redis, one of MS SQL, and any number we want about Orchard instance. So I can do maybe in another demo or not.
Yes, please.
To do the
hopefully
same.
With the cloud management thing, like we can spread tenants over different.
Yes.
That would be great.
And so just to demonstrate that when we add tenants, they are on other instance, and when we remove them, it is now also keep in sync. So for now, I am working with only one instance, classic way with SQL Server database. So I will add the tenant. So just add it like this for now, just to see that when a tenant is initialized, you can remove it. That's it. So now we can recreate it. So here, SQL Server, table prefix. So for now, I have only the default tenant. And here, I think this is this one. Great. Let's set up it. Okay. Okay, so I can refresh. It is there. We can see the new prefixed table. Let's navigate on the tenant so that we will have other things. Okay. And now here, under the seed folder, we have a tenant folder in which we have media. We could have loosen indexes. And under the W root, yes, I did a little modification with one line of code. Now, in place of having the ES cache or the MS cache or the sitmap cache, there are 3 cases for a cached file. We now have a folder per tenant like we have here. So there is one removing under that it so that each tenant can manage their own asset file, cached file under W root. So now we will delete the tenant. I don't need this anymore. So to be able to delete a tenant, you should disable it first so that it is no more served. And we will be able to create an internal shell context with all the feature it had. And we compose this shell context with all the features that has been installed, even it is no more enabled at this time. So let's disable it. So yes, when we disable tenant, we have no notification. So at the first time, when we remove one, I had no notification, but I added it. So because it is disabled, we can now remove it. Can be multiple one in a bulk action. And it is removed. So if we see in the database, all tenant one table were removed. And if we see in the file system, for example, we only have the default tenant, and here also. That's it. I can create a multiple tenant if you want. It works the same with when deleting 10 tenants, for example, at one time. What I can say is to retrieve all the database table of a given tenant. I am composing a shell context of all features that have been installed, and I am replaying the migration. And by using a custom schema builder that don't create table or remove or alter and so on. I just enlist. I just create a post history of what has been done. So where it is.
So it means that if a feature has been removed, like doesn't exist anymore, there might be some tables that are still there.
Sorry, I missed the question.
Because you
was searching for, yes, sorry. So
you replay the migration.
Yes, here.
But you don't execute the queries. To know the tables, how do you know the tables?
I will show you. 1 second. So here, as I said, I create a maximum context of all features that have been installed. So here I retrieve all the migration. I was asking to me, maybe this one is sufficient, the create method, because normally when we do the create should be updated to do all what we need, but I also execute the update, and I will show you. So we have a custom.
Is it a fake?
Yes.
Tenant?
It is. We can see here. It is based on the shell descriptor of this tenant that is disabled, but that we want to remove, and we use the shell descriptor of this tenant. We use all the installed features. I try it. For example, you enable a feature that creates a table, then you disable the feature. Then if afterwards you remove the tenant, it still deletes the table of this feature that was disabled.
So when all the feature migrations are executed, are the tables created?
No, we don't create anything. It is a fake schema builder.
Okay, so you have a custom schema builder. Okay.
Yes, this is the important part. I need to retrieve it. Where I was. This is here. So this is this one. So it inherits from schema builder, and when we do.
Well, we don't need to go into details. We just need to understand how it works. So it's just faking the creation.
Yes, and each time we create a table, it enlists an index table or a table or an alter column. All the things, it enlists it and define it in the.
What if the migration creates a select query?
I use, for example.
But if the migration itself reads the database?
No, we just enlist what all the migration has done.
What if the migration
has done,
but
by executing a fake migration step also, and we enlist. Here we enlist all tab name, all the tab prefix.
Okay. Listen to my question.
Yes. Okay.
What if the migration is trying to execute a select query?
No.
How does it work? Because there is no table, so the connection will try to get to a database that exists maybe.
Yes.
But it will try to do a select on a table that doesn't exist.
I don't understand which table.
Because you are not creating the tables.
Yes, I am doing creating the history of all tables that was created.
Do you create a table in the database?
It is already created, but I don't know which one belong. All the ones that belong to a given tenant. So I replay all migration to see what migration has created. And
So
then I have
maximum shell. The maximum shell has all the features.
Yes.
Including the ones that were not in the disabled shell.
Including all the features, the ones that were currently enabled or not.
Or not. In the case of or not, it's a new feature for the tenant. Okay, it was not there before. Will you create a table for this feature?
No.
No. Okay, stay there. You are not creating the table for this feature.
Yes.
What if the migration for this feature that doesn't have a table executes a SQL query?
I only execute SQL command at the end to remove the unlisted table, but
that's not the question.
When I replace the migration, it doesn't create anything.
That's not the question. I'm at the state where you said it doesn't create the table. Fine.
Yes.
Now the migration has a step, an update step. Update from 1, update from 2, that you execute. The code in that migration has some code that loads content items, that does SQL queries, that does stuff.
Yes.
On the tables that were supposed to be created in the create step.
Yes, normally.
Okay.
But normally we only need to, normally the create method is updated and it returns the last.
My question is, if the update step is executing SQL queries, but the table is not created, the SQL query will fail, correct?
Yes, but when I replace the migration, I don't execute nothing. I just enlist, and if it remove a table, I just remove it from the
list.
List.
What I'm saying is that it will fail. Do you see the issue that failing happens?
Yes.
It will throw an exception.
Yes. So
and the code after won't be executed.
If it fail, it will, I don't know, it will fail again when I want to replay, but maybe not. So it's a case when we installed the feature that was failing. Yes.
I'm saying that there are cases it might fail because
when migration
you don't have the table, and maybe the update step requires a table to be there to run. I know we have migrations that actually migrate the data by looking into the tables and then creating new records in new tables, right? I'm sure Jasmine did that for some Lucene thing or indexing stuff because we changed the schema and we need to move
saying
the
that what a given migration step does depend on what is currently existing in the database?
Yes. Or at least it will try to read the database or to create some records or do something on the tables, but you don't create the tables. So the step itself will fail. And maybe the next steps also will fail.
But if the table exists really...
yes, fine. But you said you're not... That's why I was asking since the beginning, what if the feature didn't exist? So the table didn't exist and you don't create the table. So any step that will require the table will fail.
You are saying if when the feature was installed, it was...
was not installed. That's because you create a maximum thing with all the features that are currently not installed. That's the issue.
No, installed means that at some point it has been
sure.
Installed.
Okay, fine. It never installed.
Well, installed means it needs to be installed at least. It needs to have been enabled once. Okay, otherwise it is not installed.
Okay, so maximum means it has been installed once.
Yes.
Okay. Fine then. Then
yes.
The table exists.
You can reference 10 modules. If you never enable it, they will not be in a given tenant enlisted in the descriptor installed feature.
I still fail if the tables have changed or if the feature has actually implemented an install or whatever. But yeah, you haven't seen the case so far.
If a migration step alters the table is still the same. If it drop an index, I unlist it. So I remove from the table list. So I will not try to remove a table that has been deleted in one step. But normally all create methods are updated and return to the last version. So normally, I only replace the create method unless there is one module that did the mistake to each one we are doing a fresh setup, all migration steps are executed, which is what we don't want because migration step may have problem based on different providers. So it's always better to provide to the create method all what we need. And but if the removing fail, we can by code update the create method to be right and retry it after.
So another solution, and I think that was a suggestion in the SQL repository, was to record the metadata or record the commands that were executed to create tables, remove tables, alter tables, and so on.
Yes.
And this was not done in SQL, but it could be done in Orchard with your fake.
This is what I mimic with my fake.
Yes. But this way, you don't need to have maximum or fake or whatever. You can just say,
yes.
It can just be there all the time. Whenever we create tenants, there is a table called schema that lists all the tables that were created by the migrations and whatever. And this way you can just read this table to know what needs to be deleted, right?
Yes. Yes, what we implemented here in these classes could be done externally, yes.
However, the only thing is that the feature needs to be there before you can disable the tenants, so it will not work with previous versions. Now it will work with previous versions.
I'm not sure.
You can't, because it would have had to be there
For
when
your
the feature was
solution,
first.
for your second solution, but for
Yes.
with this solution, we can create the history. Yes,
sure, that's what I'm saying. With my suggestion,
sorry.
you can't do that with all tenants. With your solution, you can.
Yes.
But you have to rerun everything, and it's prone to failures. With my solution, it can't fail because it will just store what tables have actually been created over time. So might be nicer, or maybe we need the two of them, like a fallback. Like if the table doesn't exist, that might make sense. Like for 1.5 to say we handle all previous versions, but for 1.6 you should have had 1.5 already, so it should have stored all the tables that have been created for deletion.
You can also run your logic probably in a migration. Figure out what has been installed using this logic.
Exactly.
Just create a document and log
exactly.
it. That's a one-time thing. Then moving forward, anytime you add a table, you log to the document, and now moving forward, you're good to go.
Even better.
Sorry.
So the idea is that
I didn't understand.
So your logic to find all the tables when you click on something could be a migration. Like in a migration, you could say, let's replay all the features to know what tables have been created and store the list of tables in the document. Okay?
This is what I am doing.
Yes, but if you did it in a migration, and at the same time you do my technique, which is with like enhancing the schema provider, or I don't know what it's called, such that whenever a table is created, you store the name of the table in the same schema document. This way, when we want to delete a tenant, you just look at this schema document to know what tables need to be deleted. You don't have to play the migrations.
Yes, I understand, but what I don't understand is to play a migration. I don't understand.
What you are doing today, when you want to delete, to play the maximum, you are doing the maximum shell context and you are running the migrations. If you did it in a migration, automatically, you could rebuild the schema document and be sure that any next version of Orchard will have the schema document.
But if you play a migration to build the schema document,
yes,
it will create a table or not?
We'll create a table with the list of tables that have been created.
Yes,
so basically create a migration.
A dedicated migration.
Yes.
That only builds the schema document, but how? By replaying what?
The stuff you made, replaying all the migrations. But this one.
Okay.
It's just because today, this schema document, if you have the feature to store all the new tables in the document, if you enable it today as a feature, then you don't have the past ones, right? It will work for all the new deployment of Orchard, because all new deployments will create new tables. But the issue is that you won't be able to delete all tenants from all versions. And that's why you might have a custom migration to build this list for all tenants.
But this custom migration will be run by who?
Can be the default in the default setting, whatever default feature.
Like I did it for this. I do it at the host level, but I am creating where it is. I am creating a shell context to run it. So you are meaning maybe a custom migration that is called.
Well, or you could say when you click delete tenant, if the document with the schema exists and has all the things, fine. Or if the version of the tenant is whatever, you can take this table. Otherwise, you can run your code. That's also.
Okay. Yeah, but that's not going to work though, because if you enabled it midway, it's going to clean only what's stored and not the. I think the best way to do this is to actually create the document table if it doesn't exist using this logic. So if right now we're running it and that document doesn't exist, we look for anything that has been installed in the past, figure out what tables that should have been created, and store that document. And if you're removing, you should only focus on that document table. I think that is the best logic that works in both cases.
Or you say you can't remove the old tenants because they're too old. But because it's not just that, even the cache and everything, maybe, I don't know if it matters, but the refactoring that has had to be done might still not work with all tenants.
And before forgetting, just to say that when we are using SQLite, we delete the complete file, and we can do this by clearing the pool connection.
Yeah, well, it works, but that would be nice if we didn't have to replay all the features at some point if we don't have to.
Yes, I understand.
I have a question and a comment. The question, what happened if you're creating a tenant and then something failed and half of the tables were created? Do you also store that and roll back those tables?
If something failed, because when we work, we have two levels of removing handler. Removing things. We have tenant level removing handler and host level removing handler for deleting local resource as a tenant folder and so on. But here at the tenant level, all what we are doing, if it fails, the tenant failed to be removed and the tenant is still there. It is not removed and no table was removed.
The question was, when you set up a new tenant and it fails, can it be automatic that it also deletes the tables that were already created?
Right.
So the idea is you create a tenant. Sometimes it fails, like in the middle, like a feature failed to install. Okay, and the tenant is completely unusable. It doesn't work, right? But there are 5 tables already in the database.
Normally, when a tenant failed to set up,
so what would be nice is that
nothing has been committed.
What would be nice? Well, are you sure? Today, that's not the case.
Yes. Yes.
Like the full thing. I mean, I don't create tenants all the time, but I remember that when something fails, there is still a table in the database.
Maybe. We have to check it.
So what would be nice, and that's Mike's suggestion, would be that because the setup screen says this is a connection string of the tables, create them, maybe it would be nice to also revert all the tables that were created, but it failed in the middle. If
normally the table are not.
Let's try. Right? We should try with a exception in the migration.
Normally we cancel any session.
Yeah, normally. But I'm sure if he mentions that, and I also think I've seen that some tables are still there. If it was using the thing we talked about, then you could do that. You could say, oh, I know what tables were created. Let's delete them.
Okay.
And it's not just tables too, also the folder.
Oh yeah, folders and everything, data. So that's why you might want to do your logic to remove everything.
Yes. But yes, to understand correctly, but we will need what you were talking about, to implement the schema.
The schema. And Mike's comment makes me think of something because he mentions folder and everything. Maybe the migration API should have an API to say, I created a table, or I created a folder, I created a file, I did that, such that we can record these events, CQRS, and then play the opposite to clean everything. And this way, the schema would have a list of commands to execute so that we can delete cleanly something or revert the thing.
About the file, you are mentioning file.
Mm-hmm.
I just, in two places, I just delete the...
Yeah, sure, but just if in case a migration does something and wants to inform the system that something was
created, I
understand,
and for everything that has been persisted, even if it failed afterwards.
Then, for instance, the cache feature, the image sharp feature, we mentioned the same way that, oh, I created a folder for caching and it should be removed.
Yes, this is what I am doing.
Yeah, but
when
because you know it's there.
Yeah, but you need to do it when the tenant fails. The tenant, because the folder could be already created halfway, and then we realize, oh, we couldn't even finish creating the tenant. So something at that point, you have a document, schema document table in memory, keeping track of all the tables you already created. Plus, it will have a list of all the folders that were created, and then you will uncreate.
I'm not sure, because if the folder exists, I just delete it. If it doesn't exist, what I am taking care of, for example, listen indexes, I am taking care that the tenant.
You are taking care of that. Show us the code. Show us the code where you delete the listen index.
Oh, it's just.
Yeah, show us, and I will show you the issue.
Yes.
I know what you will show, and you will. I will show you something, and you will understand. Show us, where is the code for the listen index?
I am looking at it.
I think that if a migration step would fail because of a bad migration code, it could happen that the tenant is
the listen index is.
Yes, when the tenant is released, the listen file, just to say, the listen file are not locked. And because we need to disable
we don't care about that. It's a detail. It's a detail. Yes. Where do you delete the listen folder? You are not deleting the listen folder here. You are deleting the shell folder.
Shell seed folder.
I don't see listen here. You are just deleting the shell folder. So that doesn't apply.
But I don't read to, yes. Yes, for a set of features that we know that put things under the, for example, the seed folder, we differently delete all.
I just want to focus on the question. There is no listen folder here. So where do you delete the is-cache folder?
So it is in the other one here. I just delete in the same way. I am checking if there is a.
You are not deleting the is folder here. You are deleting the www root for the tenant.
For the yes, it may include the image.
So that's not the question.
The media cache and the sitemap cache.
Sure. My point was that I wanted you to show, because you said, "Oh, I'm deleting the listen folder. I'm deleting the is cache." No, you are deleting.
Not explicitly.
Yes, that's very important to say that, because if you were, I would have proved that it's wrong, because you would assume that there is a listen folder somewhere in a code that doesn't know about listen. You are assuming that there was a cache folder in the code that should not assume there is a cache folder. No, you are deleting.
It is a service at the host level to delete all local resources that are normally put.
My point was, if you have to do assumption about things that exist like listen, like is cache, then you might want to do more of that, and then you need an API for migration to tell you, I am the is cache, I am the listen folder, I am that and that, so you should delete me later.
Yes.
Okay. So that's what's my point.
Yes. So if you will have choose to do it explicitly, because I am calling a tenant level removing handler, we could have it could have.
There is nothing explicit here.
The job of the media module, yes.
There is nothing explicit here. You are deleting the shell folder. You are deleting the www shell folder. There is it's fine. That's okay. There is nothing to say. And then modules can put files in this folder. That's fine. Just in case, Mike's suggestion was, if someone creates a file of a folder somewhere else than in these two folders, it would be nice to be able to also delete them.
Yes, but he can do that. In that case, specific case, it has to implement tenant, I am lost where I am. It has to implement a tenant level handler.
Well, you could say that for all the migrations, right?
Yes.
And for the tables.
Yes, yes. We use the existing tenant event handler on which we added a removing handler on which we pass the removing context. And so I think it is done tenant level removing handler. It is done here. Yes, in the context we talk about. So here, each tenant event handler are called here.
I will tend to try to delete explicitly those cache folders because you never know what is stored in those folders. Like I know that we used to use the www folder for storing a robot.txt file for each of the tenants, which was added inside the tenant folder. But I'm just saying, we never know what people are storing in
yes,
www.
That's why I delete the whole tenant folder, And if there are a specific asset under the tenant one folder, it will be removed. The feature has the responsibility that when the tenant is released, no lock should remain on a given file and so on. Well, like it is done for Lucene, for example, the lock are released when we release the module, when we release the Lucene feature.
I think it is fine, though. I would tend to keep some files in there, but if you say that if you remove a tenant, that it removes everything, then fine.
That's the goal. Yes. That's the goal of the feature is to delete things.
Yeah.
Another thought on the migrations. Maybe another idea, we can have one method in migrations called down. So in the down method, we can have a statement that does, well, maybe we
already discussed of this, but it lets, in summary, it let too much responsibility to some for each individual module. And indirectly about migration, this is what we are doing. By indirectly by replaying the migration of all installed feature.
Well, if we have the down method, then if you just call the down method on everything, I mean, wouldn't that
but we have it and nobody implements it. That's the issue. And I think that's a good point, opposed to what I said with the API to let people mention what has been created, because they don't. Even if you tell people, hey, if you call this method, we'll be able to delete your folder, your file, and your tables, nobody writes it because we didn't even write it.
Maybe they just don't need that function then. But if you want that function, the remove function, you need to implement the down, and that's the whole purpose, because that way you have full control on what you want to remove and what you don't. Because obviously having a remove function is scary, right? Because what if someone hacked the tenant website and now they can just go and delete every single tenant, right? So it could be scary. Someone might come back and say, hey, I don't want that, right? So
that's why I was saying, yeah.
The point is, I think maybe having just to call the down method, and if you implement the down method, we're going to honor it. But if you don't implement the down method, we're not going to remove it.
But if multiple modules don't implement the down method, and we will have a junk file and so on, and it should be well documented. Take care if you delete the tenant. Take care, we will delete all related resources.
Yeah, but the point is that if you remove a file like a JPEG file, which is a photo and that you started on your server and you remove it, then you lost it. There's nothing there that you can do. And
another thing also on the UI, this is a comment. When you in that remove button, that warning should explicitly say by removing, you will permanently lose the data. You will permanently lose the tables. You will permanently lose the folders. And also, I think you should require the admin to retype their password.
Yes, about more explicit UI warning. I agree. Just suggest them, and we can.
Yeah,
add
but
it.
also I think you should also have them type their password one more time, because you don't want
you have to
someone
type the name of the resource. Yeah.
Do we remove the blob storage too? Are we deleting this, or we?
Yes, good question. For this specific feature, I added the implementation of removing in our module in the removing under, so that we can remove the related blob or related bucket in Amazon or related whatever. Because here we have no choice. It can't be done at the host level. Should be done at the tenant level by the related feature. Yes, it has been done.
I don't want to use it. It's scary.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would make this one optional because
and we have Jasmin, and we have the option. We already have the option to create, for example, for blob a container on setup. I added the option to delete the container itself on removing. So you have the choice to not delete the container on removing.
Okay, fine.
Yeah, idem for Amazon bucket. Okay. So many work to do still.
No, nothing. Like
okay.
Just technically everything works, but some design decisions.
So we can discuss on GitHub for what we have to add, or a separate pull request.
It's not what we have is like, do we agree about the solution, or because it works, and something that works beats anything that doesn't work, and it's just design. But
I can. I will not do it, but if you request, I can demonstrate that enabling two features, then disable it, then see the table it created, and remove the tenant to see that these tables are deleted too, and so on.
That's fine.
And one more last thing for me is I would also create the settings in the app configuration only, no web, that allow you to force that feature, because what if someone again hacked the host or the default tenant? You don't want them to be able to enable that feature if the app settings say never use that function, because I mean we all agree this is a power function, right? You don't want it to be misused. If someone go in and delete every single tenant I have, I'm in big trouble, right? So I think that feature is great, but it should be used very, very, very cautiously, and we should allow the user to say never allow or allow it.
Okay. What you are suggesting, different permission or configuration?
No,
or
setting.
App settings.
File-based setting.
Yep,
and and what will be the I assume the default will be you don't have it?
Don't have it, correct. Because if someone wants it, they want to explicitly go and say, hey, I'm going to allow this on my site. I'm going to accept the risk.
Yes.
Right.
Okay.
And there is no audit trail because you delete the audit trail.
Yeah, you delete everything. You lose everything, which is exactly my point. So it's very powerful, but we just have to be careful. However, in the setup context, if something fails, delete everything. You don't need permission for that because we failed to create it, so we delete it automatically. There's nothing to lose at that point. But if there's a tenant that exists,
I will do some tests about setup failing and see what happened. I think we create local resource for system, but I am not sure we create something in the database, but I will check it.
Thank you. It was great work, though.
Okay.
Thank you.
Otherwise, yes, we could demo many things, but I think here the important concept is there. So that's it for now.
Thank you. Max, do you want to demo it now or next week?
It's up to you. Mine should be quick, so.
Okay, do it then.
You want to do it?
Yes.
All right. You see Google or Chrome? Okay.
No, we see Visual Studio.
Oh, you see Visual Studio, wrong screen. Okay, you don't need Visual Studio. So I created a much simpler thing here than what we just saw. So basically, I create a way for us to be able to send notification. So you guys like it. So it's just a way for you to notify a user. You could implement a push notification to like a mobile phone. You could implement a web notification. You can have an email notification. Any kind of notification, you can basically implement it. For right now, I only did email notification because that's the quickest one. So I have a few modules here. So I'm going to also show you how that enable by dependency only flag work. So I have a notification module here that is only enabled. So if you enable it, you can enable it, and here it tells you this feature is automatically enabled or disabled based on the dependencies. And so you can enable this. However, this feature requires it. Okay, so the minute I enable this one will automatically be enabled as well, automatically. And if I disable it, so here I enable it, and notification. So in this case, this was enabled, but also if I could click disable, this one right here should also be disabled automatically. So that's just a quick demo of that flag, that new flag we introduced. And so what happens here when you actually create this feature, so this feature allows you to send notification via email. So the minute you enable this feature, now the user can go to their profile and they have a way to say, hey, I want to receive email notification. And if you implement a push notification or web notification, then you'll see a flag for those, and the user has the option to see whichever notification that we can send to receive. So that's really it for the notification. And then on the notification, you'll have a manager, INotificationManager. You basically call that and dispatch the notification. So this provides a method that allows you to send to that specific user that specific notification. And then depending on the implementation, you can do whatever it is you want. So that's on this one. Obviously, if you create a web notification, you'll only have, so this is my implementation of the email notification is that I have an email sender, and that's it on this feature. So I only implemented one class, and then I was able to send notifications via email. And if I want to do a web notification, all I have to do is create a web notifier that does the same exact thing as an email. So obviously this right here might not be very helpful by itself. So, I mean, it could be, but it's incomplete without this feature. And so this is another feature also implemented that allow you to create templates that you can dispatch automatically. And so if I enable this feature, notification templates, I can go here to notification on content items, and I do see a new type called notification templates. So in here, I actually already created a template that say welcome email for the new user. So I create a template that I want to send anytime a new user is created. And for this one, we explicitly send an email because that is the only thing that makes sense, because a new user might not have a preferences. So in this case, we only send a notification. So in here, you can select the provider that you want to utilize. And in this case, it's called a new user notification. And then in a subject, and then you have a body. There's also these arguments that we automatically create because this provider is aware of. So you can inject those into the body of the email that you want to send. And we have an email, username, and password. So the idea, if you create a new user, an admin, you might want to send their temporary password in their email so they have it, right? So this can be come in handy. And then user can change this. They can use a short code. They can use liquid templates, as you can see. And then they can create more than one template. If they, for some reason, they need a different template, they can also create more than one template. And then, so this right here, we can have as many providers, obviously, as we want to implement. There is another one that it's not completely ready that I was working on, that it's not 100% ready. But if we go here, you'll see there's a notification template based on content. So if I want to create a notification when a content of specific type is created. So if I have an article and I want to notify someone that, hey, an article has been published, then I can do that. This is not ready, and I'm not happy with the implementation here, but I'm going to show it anyway. So I can get yelled at. So I can go in here and I can create a template. So now I have a new provider here. It's called content-based notification, which is different than this provider. And so this one provides you even more templates because it has more awareness. So it has like a user name, owner ID, whatever. I don't know if all these are helpful. Probably this is the helpful one here. But here you can actually create whatever it is that you want. At the bottom here, you can control who you want to receive, or who should the person that receives this. Maybe you want to send it for some reason to the current user, or if you want specific user, you could select specific user from here, and those people will receive this notification. And because this is a content-based, you have this option that say content owner. So if you want to notify the owner for some reason, maybe you want to create like a content with comments below it. And every time someone creates a comment, you want them to be able to notify the owner or something like that. So that's where this is powerful. The thing that I don't like about this is that right now you don't have a way to select which content type you want to trigger, and which event you want to trigger it to. Right now I have it here, and this is the part that I'm not happy about. And so in here now you'll have a new setting here in the content type called notification. If you select notify, then you can say, hey, which event do you want to use to notify the user? And then also which template do you want to dispatch when this publish happens? So if someone published article, we're going to notify using this template. And this is the part that I'm not happy with. I think this one should live inside here. So when you create here, you should be able to also select the content type and the event you want to dispatch. So that's the only thing that I'm thinking here. But with this setup, you can actually implement any provider, and you can tell it which templates that you can utilize, and also you can notify the user based on their preference. So if someone don't want to receive email notification, then we don't send them. If they want us to receive only web, then we can send them web only. And if they don't want to receive notification, we don't give them notification. So this goes down to whatever the user selected in their notification preferences here. That's it. If you guys want to look at code, I can show code, but that's really it.
Why not workflows?
Because I don't know much about workflows.
Yeah,
I never used them, but I think
okay. Because when I see you saying, oh, it's not complete because I'm not happy with that, I'm like, it's already there in workflows, so you don't have anything to do to be happy with what you wanted to do.
Oh, maybe workflow will work in the content. So maybe that feature for the contact notification, maybe it's not needed. But for the email, I don't think.
Same thing. You can send email with workflows. And if it's missing something like profiles or like notification type you want to look for, you can create your custom workflow task that will use that profile to decide where the notification should be sent or what path of the workflow should go on. That would be even better. Like even with your notification tab, today you could have a custom workflow task, a script task that will say, if profile dot whatever wants email notification, then send email, because we already have the thing with send email. If your templates need to be in a content item, you can read the content item template to send the email. You can. So I think workflow is the best thing here.
But can we also have like a preference for the user to select from? Hey,
what I mean is that your feature can have this preference like you did, but the rest could be part of the workflow. Either that any user can create, or admin, or that you also create as part of your feature. A feature can create a workflow, and then the admin could customize the workflow to do things.
So instead of having templates here, somehow
it's a choice. Yeah, it's a choice. You could have the template in the workflow itself, or you could have the workflow read the template from somewhere else, like content. It's up to you. I think in the workflow it will be fine because it's a central location to change the workflow, like what is sent, where it is sent. You might want custom workflow elements that will monitor that what has been sent, if you want the admins to be able to know who received what and did they read it. Maybe you want that, I don't know. But the workflow should be the thing to first look at when I see these kind of source, destination, triggers. Okay, anyone else in the meeting thinks the same? Or
first thing I thought about is workflows, but yeah.
By the past, what we said, however, and it has been a very common request, is sometimes workflow is too flexible, and sometimes it's better to have a dedicated feature that actually replaces whatever workflow can do, because in terms of UI, sometimes it's simpler. In your UI, I don't think it's simpler because there are lots of concepts here in different parts of the system. So I think workflow is better. Some people have implemented like stuff based on content items or content types, like, oh, when a content type is created, send an email. So they don't have to mess up with workflows. But in this case, I think workflows is not more complicated than what I've seen.
I think the issue here is that he wants to have custom templates, which we don't have, and I would probably add a dedicated menu item there that could have been added just to create the templates, because we miss email templates.
That's what I'm saying. Sometimes you can create your, well, sometimes here you could create your custom workflow task that does that.
Yeah.
And then you can reuse everything to filter content sources, notifications, and everything from the workflow that already exists. If you want to have a way to select from a drop-down the source or whatever, or to type the template, because today when you send an email, you can type the template for the email, which I find is nice because when you send a text, an SMS, or when you send an email, or when you send a text on a channel, on a, I don't know, a Gitter, you don't send the same thing. So maybe it's better to have different templates in this case. And the workflow is totally fine. Maybe you want the email. So today in the email task, we can type something which is liquid. Well, we could also have a step that will load the template from a content item if you want it from a content item.
So I'm not familiar much with that, so I have to look more. But my question, but the thing is, one thing I do like about this is having those parameters. Mm-hmm. I think it might make things easier for the user, so you can just type in the email from here. You're aware of what you can pass without having to use complicated liquid or whatever. Can we also have maybe a menu here that say, hey, trigger this workflow? So here's a template, and this one maybe trigger specific workflow or something like that, and the workflow can determine what happens with this template. They send it via email, or
you could have a content item that the workflow will use, and whenever something is triggered, the workflow could read the content item, could read a property, and based on the property, do something different.
Okay, I'll look more and see if I can use that instead.
The idea about templates for workflows that I had a while ago was about the fact that we can't translate the emails template right now. Maybe it could be added in the...
Yeah, but I think the workflow could load content items, even translations of content items. And even if you really don't like how you can do it today, because it's too much code, then you can still create a custom task that is doing that, such that the user doesn't have to care about writing the script for that. The user can just configure the task and the task will do it for you.
Yeah, but it's somehow quite difficult for a simple
generic
thing
yeah,
people.
But here in this case,
require.
If you care about that, you can code that and make it available as a workflow item and still reuse everything else from the workflow system.
Yeah. So basically use the same template, but just have somehow trigger a workflow behind it. So the work
and you need to understand the workflow and then see what you want to do with that. Or if you really don't want to use the workflow.
That makes sense.
Remembers me the webhook module that someone did a while ago and was kind of reusing the workflow in a different way, make it easier for him.
All right, sounds good.
And maybe your whole module here will be a workflow task, and then triggering the workflow task will be based on whatever exists already in the workflow. I'm not saying everything in the workflow today, but you can reuse some of the workflow. And the nice thing with the workflow is that people can extend it with everything else that exists in modules. Look at it. So powerful that Sipke made a product out of it. Right? So
yeah, and we should merge it.
That shows that it's beautiful. Okay, thank you, Mike. Look at it and then we'll get a new demo. I'm sure.
That's good. Thank you.
I think Elsa is going to be done for OrchardCore in like 5 or 6 months from now. Not sure if we want to have it, but yeah. Probably will work.
Because Trial works on Orchard for a long time. Took the workflow module, extracted it from Orchard, called it Elsa, made improvements for sure. And this is just code, but
I'm not sure if it works from the version 2.2, but there's like a project on GitHub that is not completed entirely, which is integrating Elsa 2.2 with OrchardCore, but Sipke told me that he's going to make it available for Elsa 3.0.
Why do you think it supports Liquid and JavaScript and everything? It's because of Orchard.
Yeah.
But that's good. That's great. Use it if you yeah. Maybe even easier to understand the workflow in Orchard by looking at Elsa because of the documentation and everything. Good. Questions, comments? Oh boy, the meeting file will be a big file today to send to Gabor, but that's okay. Thanks everyone. See you on Thursday or next week.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.